with a great talk from Roberta 2 weeks ago. Thank you, Roberta, for that. I see you on today. And you're going to hear from Hank Hunt. Hank is Kari's father, who actually first started with all of this and helped bring this through to fruition. So he's going to share his story, I think, which will be very moving. I've heard it before. I've met Hank in person. You're also going to hear from Mark Fletcher, as we call him, Fletch. There's only one Fletch in the industry. It's Mark Fletcher. And Mark has been specializing now in E911 for over 12 years, right, Mark, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, yeah, at least.
Yeah. And hey, Gary, can you just turn your video off today, just for today? Thanks. And you'll hear, again, some moving, discussion here from Mark as well as to how this all came about and how it became federal law, et cetera. So before we get into that, a couple of rules. Please turn off your video like I just asked. Thank you, everyone. Please mute your audio until it's time to speak. We're going to keep this conversational today, so please feel free to chime in when it's your moment to talk. You don't have to ask for a chat in the room. Of course you can, but don't ask for a chat. We're not going to have any kind of aha moments unless you would like that today. Although, yeah, no, you could. So never mind about that. Okay, but you'll see. And again, we're going to be in gallery view, if we can keep everybody's video off. Okay, so Fran, why don't you chime in with your happy hour tomorrow night before we get started?
Absolutely. So what we do every other Thursday is have a gathering of SCTC members. Everybody's invited to attend. And tomorrow we're playing off a theme of something that Steve Layden has done with his family called Cahoots. So tomorrow for our session, you need to bring, if it's a slide or if you just want to talk about it, if you can do some sort of document you can share. And that document will have 4 items on it. 4 items of things that you've done in your past, but 3 of those will be true and 1 will be a lie. So what we need to do is we'll guess which one is the truth and well, actually we should say which one is not the truth, and have some fun with that tomorrow. So you're all welcome. You should see an invitation in your inbox and have a little fun and just get together, during this COVID time and have an opportunity to connect. So hope to see you there.
Don't forget to bring your favorite drink, right?
Bring your favorite drink. Yep, bring your favorite beverage, kick back, and have some fun.
Yeah, that's great. And Chuck, I think you wanted to share a thought before we got started today.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Last week we talked, I'll be real brief because I do want to get to the material here. We talked about an ROI analysis I did on joining the SCTC and determined that it generated $9,522 of value to me to join. So we went through that last week. We don't need to do it again, but I wanted to just make a quick statement today that even without that, even if I didn't get a penny of that, I'm just delighted to be a member of the SCTC, really because of the social stuff, what Fran's doing, these chats, the fact I can sit and play the drums, play music with you guys in your house, get to know people. Gary Lisbon and I are going to go play golf when this thing clears up. So the fact that I belong to a community of people that do what I do, that I can relate to, is worth, never mind the $9,500 worth of value. So just being part of this community makes it for me. So thanks for letting me share that.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, so your contributors today, I just mentioned that a little while ago, so I will skip past this slide. So Hank, I'm going to turn the video off. In fact, I'll turn my video off too. So Hank, you're up to share your story. And again, thank you for doing that. We have, by the way, 58 people on today, which we normally get 40 to 45. So again, we've got some great attendance, and I think everybody will be very interested in hearing how this all came about. Hank, over to you.
We'll do the fireside.
The fireside. Very good, Mark.
Yeah, that's not good. Not bad. Not bad at all.
That's all you're getting out of me. Yeah.
I want to thank SCTC and Steve and Fletch for having me on today. For those of you that don't know about Kari's Law, on December the 1st, 2013, Kari had separated from her husband of 10 years, was living with a sister about 70 miles away in Marshall, Texas. And she had agreed to meet him at a hotel so that he could visit with the children. And after arriving at the hotel, which was the Baymont Inn and Suites in Marshall, he convinced her to go into the restroom of the hotel room and talk. They had settled the 3 children down in front of the cartoons on the TV, and he wanted to discuss the situation with their marriage a little more. And after a couple of minutes of discussing it, she was adamant that it wasn't going to continue, that she wanted out. And he asked for one last hug, was the way he put it. And when he did, he took a knife and stabbed her 29 times. And during this fight, which it was a fight, Kari yelled out to her oldest daughter to call 911, which she immediately did, and nothing happened. And she hung up and dialed 911 again, and the same thing, nothing happened. And she ran from the phone to the restroom door. She could hear the fighting. She could hear the screaming. She ushered her younger brother and sister out into the hallway to go and get help, I guess. And she continued to call 911 2 more times without any success. After it was over with, he took the middle child, which was 3 at that time, Kylie, and ran and left Brianna, 9 years old, and her brother Zane, 2 years old, at the hotel by themselves. With Kari behind a locked bathroom door, they tried to get in. A neighbor, a person in another hotel room finally heard the scuffle, what's going on. And she went over, and before he left, she actually went over and confronted him. And he opened the door and had the gall to say, "We'll be through in a minute." And at that point, she saw blood on his shoes. And she tried to get him to stop. And eventually he did and left, but left Kari behind a locked door. Approximately 20 minutes after it started, 20 to 25 minutes after it started, was when help finally arrived. But when they arrived there, they had to break the door in, and Kari had moved herself across the floor to the door to try and open it, but he had left the knife lodged in her neck between 2 vertebrae that prevented her from raising her arms. And at that point, when they got there, she had already died. After this was over with, at the police station, I had Brianna, the 9-year-old, was sitting in my lap, and she said something, and I wasn't sure what she said, so I kind of pushed her back from me, and I asked her again, and she said, I tried 4 times, but it didn't work, Papa. When I asked her why, or I asked her what didn't work, she said 911. And she had a real angry, confused look on her face. And I said, why didn't it work? And she said she didn't know. And the police detective was sitting next to us, and I looked at her, and it both dawned on us at the same time that she was at a hotel with a multi-line telephone system, which required callers to dial a prefix number in order to obtain an outside line, and we don't teach our children to do that. And I told her, I promised her that I was going to fix it. And as soon as I said those words, I thought that I pretty much confirmed to myself that I was an idiot, because I knew nothing about telephones. I knew nothing about 911, and I had no clue how this was going to get repaired or fixed. Anyway, after a few days of wondering, trying to figure out what to do, discussing it with friends and on social media, I was directed to a website called change.org. It's where you can go, you can develop a petition, and it is distributed throughout the worldwide. And I wanted to get 100 or 200 signatures and I was going to march into my congressman's office and show him the support I had with 150 to 200 signatures on this petition. And I think by the time it was over with, we ended up with, what was it, Fletch? 612,000, I believe.
614, yeah.
Yeah. And as this went on, it went on for 4.5 years. And there was what I found the right people to help me do this. And about, I don't know how many days it was after I started that petition, I got a phone call from a strange area code I'd never seen before. And I answered the phone, and he told me that he introduced himself as Mark Fletcher. And he told me that he could help me. And I told him that the one thing that I wanted out of all of this was, number one, I don't want my daughter's name or granddaughter's name exploited. And number two, anything that has to do with my daughter's name or the law that we're trying to get passed, I wanted to have integrity, honesty, and a straightforward yes, no answers. I didn't like politics. And that was completely verified when I made it to Washington, D.C. I certainly don't like politics. And it's a strange environment for me up there. It's a completely different thing that I had envisioned that it would be, but learned quick and had the opportunity to testify before Congress about Kari's law. And it was life-changing for me, and I know it was for Mark. And Dan Wilson, who is, I think, is on today, was instrumental in getting it passed. The very first place it was passed was Suffolk County, New York, and we were there when it was passed. And we went and testified up there, and it was 4.5 years of emails and phone calls and traveling. And February the 16th of 2018, Mark and I and Dan stood in the Oval Office with the president when he signed Kari's law. And since then, it's been 2 years after, and it's been enacted. It actually was signed on the 50th anniversary of the first 911 call, which was I think it was a great experience for us for it to be on that date. More poignant though was the day it was voted out of Congress and headed to the White House was Kari's birthday, February the 9th. And I received a phone call, I guess it was February the 15th, and telling me that the president would like to invite me to the Oval Office to stand with him when he signs Kari's law the next day, which was less than 24 hours away. And after many phone calls and many negotiations, I can't tell you what Mark said when I told him. We're in mixed company here, but it was I'll never be able to match that feat that I believe that Mark did. Mark was, and Dan were instrumental, like I said before, in getting this going. And in our books, they're the heroes here. And it was a process. I understand it a lot better now than I did going through it, and testifying to Congress and meeting many people, and only a few that were questioning our intentions and what we were doing. And those were the only low points in it. But like I said, it's an integrity thing that I wanted out of this, and that's what we were able to have. We kept the kids out of the media. Matter of fact, I tried to get this to go as national as much as I could, and even so much as turning down interviews from major television stations, one in Los Angeles, I believe, because they didn't want to do an interview with me. They wanted to do it with the children, and I wouldn't allow that. So just a side point on why we couldn't take it national, met with, I can't remember the show. It was a major show. Anyway, we were told, I met with producers in New York twice over getting it on a national television show, and I'm so sorry I can't remember the lady's name. But we were told that it wasn't of public interest, and kind of took me aback, which made me double down more. And
Wow.
But we got it through, and right now at this point, it's federal law, covers all 50 states, and our job now is awareness and getting it out to the public. The pictures, they're gone from my phone, so I can't tell you which slides are. You can put any of the pictures up there, Steve, that you want.
Sure.
But it's not. I can show you a little bit about here. That's my backyard. No, this is Kari and the children there. We live on a small horse ranch.
Hank, you're in grave danger, because if DJ knows that you are showing that picture of her on the right.
I did not realize it was the wide shot there. And yeah, you're right. She's going to kill me when she finds out about it.
Your life is
I'm
in danger,
trouble.
my friend. Yeah.
That next picture is Kari, and we had just gotten out of church. And as you can see, Mimi is what the grandchildren call her. She's a ham for photos, and I'm getting the stink eye now from across the room. So,
I can feel it.
thanks, Mark. I should have never known that if you hadn't said it. But
I just took a screenshot.
Yeah. But you see the oldest child there. Brianna's the one that took the picture after church, but Brianna's the one in the red dress over Kari's left shoulder on the haystack there, and Kylie is the one standing next to her on her right shoulder. She's the one that he took and had for approximately 3 to 4 hours. They had a chase and a bolo and everything. Amber Alert issued for her, and we finally got her back. She was safe. She was scared, and one of the most interesting things about the case is that so many hours later, after they were finally recovered, my granddaughter, was that at the recovery, at the arrest site, none of the arresting officers realized none of them knew that a murder had occurred. Wow. And you can hear the officers telling Kylie that we're going to take you back to your mama. And there was a lot of things that day that was a breakdown in communication that was very hard for me to swallow. And first of all, not being able to get 911. We had a gentleman, I can't pronounce his name. It was a forensics doctor from Chicago, I believe, who came and testified after all of the autopsy records and things that he had gone over, that Kari, none of the wounds that she suffered in themselves were fatal. It was the time and the delay in getting help to her that she'd still be here with us if that hadn't occurred. And even if she had gotten through on 911, the Annie Alley information wasn't correct. It was a previous hotel's name that had been the owners of that building before that would have shown up, and that it was a La Quinta Inn, which had moved like 3 or 4 blocks down. They would have gone straight to the La Quinta. Even on the faceplate on the phone, if they had asked Brianna, what does it say, it would have said La Quinta instead of a Baymont Inn and Suites. And the employees at the hotel that the younger two children encountered didn't speak English, so they couldn't get help there. Matter of fact, they let both of them out into the parking lot of a hotel that's on a busy highway there. And it was just a lot of things happened that day that it's hard to explain, but we're trying to get corrected. And I think especially with Mark and Dan's help, we were able to get that done. And I'm proud to say that Mark's turned into a good friend. I have to say that, or he'll get mad. And
well, there's money involved. Yeah, I've made payments.
Okay, good.
But no, Mark hit this head on, running straight with it, and we'd still be out there trying to pound the pavement and get things done if it hadn't been for him. He took a lot of first steps on this, and it's hard to say no to 911, and we found out that we garnered a tremendous amount of support. Thousands and thousands of people that I will never know helped get this law passed. And I can't say thank you enough to all of them.
I think it's important to understand. I mean, there were a lot of people involved. There's just no possible way to list everybody, but there are significant people that got involved here. One of the first people I turned to was Martha Beyer. I had been introduced to Martha a couple of years earlier around some 911 stuff, and this came up, and I said, we need to do something here. There's active regulatory action happening at the FCC. Tom Wheeler was the chairman at the time. So I need to write an open letter to the FCC and say, listen, you guys have been working on this. You haven't made any progress. You initially kicked it over to the states. The states have not done anything with it. A couple of states did. This needs to be addressed because now you have a woman who is now dead in Texas. And I reached out to Martha, and for probably a good solid week, we went back and forth at least 10 times over email, back and forth, crafting this 2-page letter so that it had impact and described what would happen. And there was, she made me put stuff in there I didn't want to put in there, but looking back, it was the right thing to put in there. And, it was really a big collaborative event. And Martha never gets credit for that. I mention it whenever possible, but it was, I go back and I read that and I hear things that people say. And, those are words that we all created together as a group. And together we made an impact. And Ajit Pai was just a commissioner and had actually picked up the letter because I copied all the commissioners. And the chairman doesn't actually take on causes. The commissioners do that. I had no idea. And I had gotten a phone call. And I had already promised Hank that I would fix it. And he had already promised his daughter he would fix it. No, neither one of us knew exactly how or how long. Hank's first idea was to change the access code to 8 because somebody told him that was the thing to do.
Wow.
And I had to explain to him why that's not the right thing to do and how that doesn't even begin to address the problem. It just masks the problem. So I had to take I love you, Hank, but a Texas redneck and teach him telephony. And boy, I'll tell you, he knows more about it now than most people in this business. I'm really proud of him. He just doesn't know good barbecue from bad. That's all. That's his only fault.
We're not going to get into that now. We may take a vote here.
So Mark, if you don't mind, so Martha, maybe you can, chime in here. What was your behind the scenes effort here?
Well, I guess before I was a lawyer and before I was a telecom network engineer, I spent a year working at a public relations firm. So I knew I knew a fair amount about how to get them, about managing and crafting a message. And this is it's such a personal issue, and it is such as Hank has said, and by the way, Hank, this is the first time we've met, but it's very nice to meet you finally.
Finally.
I wanted to make sure that the message was hard-hitting enough and personal enough that they couldn't ignore it. And so I wrote some things in that letter that was not signed by me. Fletch signed it. But I wrote some things that I knew that I suspect he did not want disclosed. But I thought it would help drive the point home. And so aside from mentioning certainly the critical facts of what had happened in Marshall, Texas, I needed to put a personal spin on it. And Fletch agreed, somewhat reluctantly.
Somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat reluctantly. But we did, and it had the desired effect. So I think it's a letter that was crafted to keep the message powerful, direct, and make it real so that anybody who read it would understand what the issue was. It was not a technical letter about Annie Alley, not that that's not critically important, it is, but it was about making this story personal to anybody who read it. And referencing legal approaches, that's it.
One of the things I took a lot of heat on was that Kari's law did not address location.
Right.
And I explained to everybody, I said, listen, I've been working on 911 legislation since it became an issue. And the number one thing that has always distorted the proceedings or have made them incredibly expensive is the location aspect of this. The location aspect had nothing to do with Kari's death. It could have, but it didn't. The problem with Kari was access. And before location matters, before anything else matters, you've got to be able to dial 911. And I knew that that was a simple fix. And I knew that was an inexpensive one.
Let me just interrupt you for a second and say that that's the second issue. The first one is the time is of the essence. And anything that delays that, anything, is a problem. Now I'll be quiet.
I stand corrected by counsel. People say, did you go to the law school? I said, yeah, I went to Bayer University.
Thanks.
So let me just interrupt for a quick second just to level set too. Today is really more conversational, and we will continue next week with Mark and Martha also providing some deep knowledge as to what the takeaways are and how you can contribute back to your clients in terms of opportunity. Okay, I think the opportunity is actually probably one of the largest in 2020, even 2021 for clients. I've actually spoken personally with at least 10 clients in the last 2 weeks about it because I'm also doing some other interviews for another topic. And everybody is interested and everybody knows that they have to be because it's compliance. So didn't really want to bother them during COVID, but now that we're coming out of COVID, it's a hot topic. So we'll do that. And then Mark, let me know when you want to do that poll as well. I missed doing that a little bit earlier. Okay.
Yeah, sure. No problem. No, and again, the one thing I want to mention is that, people said, well, why is this a problem all of a sudden? I said, well, this is not a problem all of a sudden. This is a continuing, ongoing problem. There was a high school student in California whose call got misrouted to a 911 center in Canada because the 911 wasn't provisioned correctly. Hank's old workplace didn't have 911 configured correctly. And when he had that changed, Does it work? Yeah, it works fine. But it ended up in Canada as well by doing some default routing. There was a man outside of, I think it was Las Vegas or Phoenix, that died from an auto parts store. Had a heart attack at the counter. They went to the main corporate office. This has happened over and over and over and over again. One of the initial ones in Gaithersburg, Maryland, was a research scientist who died across the street from where the ambulance responded within 7 minutes. The cleaning lady found him 7 hours later. This is not new. What made this different was the man on your screen right now. And I told Hank, I said, listen, I can hook you up with the right people. I know where and how to get your message, but this is your story and you need to tell this story. And Hank said, well, I'm not a public speaker. So I made Hank a public speaker because the first time we met was at the Nina Apco convention in Galveston, Texas, where I was going to go speak for about 45 minutes and then let Hank introduce himself to the crowd. And well, I'll let Hank give you a synopsis of my speech.
Yeah, he stepped up on stage and introduced himself and said, "Here's Hank." And that was basically it. I had no choice. I looked at my wife and I looked at him, and he's like, everybody's staring at me, so I guess it was my time to go up on stage. And
I'll tell you, he had 300 emergency call takers. Rough, tough, have seen everything. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house that day, myself included. And I think, if anything, that's when I taught Hank the power of the spoken word and the power of his story. I think he saw it that day, and that was one of the first glimmers of hope that I think we had, about this. Another day was when he was testifying in front of a Senate committee, and a congresswoman was ripping him a new one all over cell phone location accuracy. And he just stood there and gave it right back to her. And she came back and apologized after that because she had it wrong. And that's, little things like this where, Hank is the real deal. And when Steve said, do you think, I said, let me tell you, I'll go down there and drag him to this if I have to. But absolutely, this is what makes people stand up, listen, and go, oh my God. And again, I'll bring it back to Martha. Oh my God, that was the letter. It was the oh my God letter. Dan Wilson on the train, on Amtrak, getting yelled at in the quiet car for not being quiet. Dan and I were converting some poor woman who happened to sit with us in a 4-seater and got the whole story. By the end of the trip, she was wearing a purple wristband and part of the Kari Army. But that's what it's about.
Wow. So Fletch, why don't you share, you've shared this story with myself when we've seen each other personally many times, about when you got the call from Hank with a 24-hour notice that you had to be in DC.
So that was the week of Valentine's Day, and February 14th was the terrible Parkland, Florida school shooting down in Florida. And I had forgotten my Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. But once a bill passes out of Congress, it's got 10 days to get signed by the president. And if it's not signed, it's an automatic veto. And then you basically go back to square one. I had no idea we were under that timeline, but we were. So, and weekends count. So that had put, with that passing out on the 9th, Kari's birthday, That had until the 19th to be signed by the president. The Parkland school shooting was on the 14th. The president's last day in D.C. was Friday the 16th because he was getting on an airplane that afternoon going to Parkland to speak there. And I got a phone call from Hank. And by the way, I've got a written statement saying I'm allowed to imitate Hank. Some people will call it mocking him. Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. Why? What's up? He goes, we're going to the bleep White House tomorrow. We are? Wow, I need to make some phone calls. And the first call I made to Dan was to Dan. I said, guess what? We're going to the bleeping White House tomorrow. Great. And that was that. And I met Dan at Penn Station, Newark. We got on the Excella and down to Washington. Hank had just gotten in the night before. He's at Dallas Airport. He didn't even know if everybody we wanted to get cleared. And this man right here told the United States Secret Service when he said, well, I have guests coming. Well, they all have to be cleared, Hank. You know, who do you have coming? And he read off a list of probably 15 people. Well, no, you can't do that. Well, then I'm not coming. Excuse me? Well, I'll let you tell that side of the story, Hank, for what you said to the president.
Well, it was I believe she was the assistant to the president of Oval Office. She was in charge of the Oval Office. And her name was Brittany, I believe. And I told her, she said that she had a plane ticket for myself and my granddaughter to come up there. And I said, well, my wife is going to be with me and with some other people. And she says, well, we can't have that many people in the Oval Office. And I said, I have people that I need to take up there that need to be with me, the ones that were instrumental in getting this to where it is. And she said, we can't have that many people in the Oval Office. And I said, you have football teams in the Oval Office. You have basketball teams. I've seen it. And that took care of that problem. But I told her that if I couldn't have him there, I wasn't going to come. To tell the president that I thank him very much. But if the people who got me there couldn't be there with me to celebrate it, then I didn't want to be there. And he would do the same thing. He would not, the president would not accept that situation without the ones that were instrumental in getting him there. I just don't believe he would. And there's no way I was going to go up there and take my granddaughter and it just be her and I. Wasn't going to happen. Wasn't going to happen. So she finally agreed that the ones I had on my list could come, and I think we ended up with 11 of us, 12 of us there, Mark.
Yeah,
and,
probably.
Matter of fact, Steve, that picture of us in the Oval Office, right there, if you could put that up.
I sure will.
To explain what's going on in this picture.
Well, this was first, right? Well, this was when you were presenting Congress, right?
Correct.
That was at the FCC. Oh, that was Congress, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Tell you what, go back to number 5 real quick.
This one? Oh, 5.
Number 5, yeah. That 9-year-old little girl that tried to call 911 and couldn't get through. Is that number? No.
That one, or you got another one? Go ahead.
No, I believe it's number 5 on there.
Oh, you're 5. I'm sorry. This one?
Yeah. Okay, that's Brianna and Kari, and then the very next one is a shot of Brianna herself now, and
oh, wow.
she's, yeah.
Don't let that smile fool you. She is a firehouse.
She is. She knows how to take care of the press, and she knows that Mark or I are not going to let anybody exploit her, and she knows that. And but we usually don't have a problem. She'll tell them the facts, but that's her now. And
one of the best stories about Brianna was at a signing event for the Tennessee law, which I wasn't able to go to because I was traveling. After the law was signed, the governor went to hand Brianna the pen. And he said, "Here, sweetheart, I want to give you this pen." And she boldly says, "I already got 5 of these."
Yeah, she's a firecracker, and we're proud of her. She's our oldest granddaughter, and she's turned into a beautiful young lady and fixing to start driving, on my Lord. Yeah, and then now the photo of the Oval Office.
Yeah.
There
we go.
Yeah. What's going on here is that over to the left of this picture is my another granddaughter of mine. She's standing with Brianna. President Trump went around and shook everyone's hand, and she was she was how old was Brooklyn at that time? 9? I believe she was about 9. And he got to her, and when he did, she just blurted out, "Oh my God." And when she did, it tickled him. He stood up straight. You know, he had bent over to shake her hand, and he stood up straight, and that was the reaction from everybody there. And he turned and looked at me. He goes, "I hope she likes me." But he said some very nice things about my family and about Kari, and he had this little speech written out, and after that was over with, he signed the speech and gave it to Brianna and told her he didn't want to see it on eBay that night. It was a whirlwind of I guess what 30 minutes we might have been total time in there, and
yeah.
I was more impressed with the desk than I was anything. And it was, like I said, it was a whirlwind. I can't remember a lot of it. I remember him coming in and introducing myself to him, and then the things he said. But once he started talking about my family, my brain was everywhere, and it was pretty emotional for me to watch him sign his name.
Now we're standing in front of the window that looks out to the Rose Garden, and just before the president walked in, Hank noticed a little something about that, which again is a little kind of backstory that a lot of people don't know about. Mr. Hunt?
We're waiting for the president to come in. We're all standing in this position here. That's to my right is a congressman from Alabama, and my wife is right behind the president, and then there's Fletch. And we're all standing there, and I'm checking out the Oval Office. And I'm looking around, and I notice outside that the lawn is manicured, perfect, nice green hedges, perfectly trimmed. And I glanced up, and I don't know why. For some odd reason, there was bird poop on the window, and it really bothered me. And I felt like somebody needed to know that the White House had been pooped on. And about that time, the president came in, and that went away. But that's where my brain was, trying to notify that the White House had been desecrated by bird poop.
Wow.
What that story is.
So Hank and Fletch, let me ask you, what actions are being taken in 2020, from the both of you personally to, again, lead the charge here for Kari's Law?
Education.
Well, for me, I mean, I think for every one of us so far, Zoom right here is where it's happening. Not much traveling. I'm hoping in the next few weeks, traveling is going to be opening up. From what I see and hear in the 911 community is that it's opening up, and a lot of flights are happening. But like for me, it's just traveling to spread the word and bring awareness out to it. Mark does so much more on his end because of the technology there. But he's my tech guru. If I have a question or anything like that, I can text him or call him, and he'll get right back to me with an answer.
Mm-hmm.
With a couple of rednecks and things poked in there too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the one I go to for the technical stuff. I've learned over the past 5 years or 4.5 years to 5 years that I don't know as much as I think I do about technology and the phone. So when I try to explain to someone how the 911 works and I screw it up, he's the first one to speak up and tell me to shut up, and he gets over.
Shut up, Hank.
So Hank, from your vantage point, and Mark, what do you recommend to the audience here in terms of what can we do to spread the word, so to speak?
I think the biggest thing is awareness. We proved that from day one. Nobody really knew this was a problem. When everybody looked at the problem, they said, oh my God. You know, Legislator Trotta from Suffolk County was the first one to say this, and it kind of came the coin phrase. This is a no-brainer, and that's exactly what it is. Why would you not want to do this? You know, and the one poll that I think if you could bring up is the one why people don't remediate this. I mean, I'd like to understand what the excuse is of, you know, is it cost? Is it complexity? You know, what is that?
Yeah, so there's a poll in front of everyone right now that you can see. The question is for consultants, how many of your clients, not you personally, your clients, are aware of Kari's law? Scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, meaning most aware.
Because what we found out is that people, you have kind of different camps of people. Some people will say, well, geez, I didn't know. That's terrible. That's a horrible story. I'm going to fix that. I don't want that happening here. And then you have other people saying, what's my legislative requirements, right? And until the law was in place, and I think Martha will say, you know, that was one of the biggest things. People don't know what the law is. They don't want to make a decision unless they're told, because they think that by doing so, they're bringing liability on.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the other question that comes up all the time is, what's the risk of non-compliance? That's the question that I get asked the most. What's the risk of not being compliant?
Yeah, and you know, that's, I think, really one of the things when Hank did go to court for his civil lawsuit, there was a lot of discussion on whether he settles or he goes to a jury, and you know, that's his decision. But there had been no award ever given in this type of trial. Never went to a jury. So that was a big gamble for him to do that. And again, I don't want to steal Hank's thunder. He was the man that made the decision. So Hank, you can.
No, I just that was a long week, and it went a full 5 days, and in the end, we left it in the jury's hand. I wasn't in there 98% of the time. I was in there when I testified, and that was pretty much it. Now, I was in there for the prosecutor's closing statements and things like that, but I was not allowed in there. I was able to stand in front of him, the man that took my daughter. I was and give a family statement, and it was a very hard thing for me for anybody to go through. I mean, it really is. It was pretty emotional. The jury, from what I understand, was very emotional throughout the whole thing. And by the time it was over with, they had awarded a little over $42 million in this case. It was a shock to me. My attorneys were really shocked that it would be that high, and I think that's that's the major signal that needs to be sent, is that this has never happened before. This set a precedent in the courts for something like this. And I think any other case in the future, our award is going to be minuscule compared to that. Because if this happens again, I mean, nobody out there can say that they didn't know. Now it's federal law, and it has to be done. I mean, it has to.
That's an important point. When this jury awarded that amount to the Hunt family and to the trust fund for the children, there still was no federal law. There still was no law in the state of Texas. You had maybe 13, 14 states that had law, but regardless, the jury decided, and Martha, you can tell me all the legal words, you know, willful, wanton, whatever, right? That's what they decided.
Well, I think it was based, and I've read the decision, I've read what's available on it. It was based on negligence by the hotel chain. It wasn't simply, and I don't want to oversimplify this because none of this is easy, but it also had to do with the fact that the hotel workers who the kids went out and saw who they yelled to didn't respond. And the hotel did not behave as a reasonable innkeeper should have. And I suspect that was part of the jury's decision. Yeah. It was certainly the direct access was part of it, but the other part was that the hotel hadn't trained its staff, and they weren't prepared to deal with it, and that's negligent.
Yeah, and I've said this to Hank many, many times, and I still feel uncomfortable saying it, but I think it's relevant. So many things went wrong that day that should not have gone wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, it was Kari's loss was inevitable. I mean, right on down to the address being wrong, and the hotel actually existing by name down the street, and they would have driven right past the Baymont and gone there. There are so many things that were wrong that it was, you almost want to say it was destiny that Kari's life was taken that day. Yeah. And from day one, I asked Hank what he wanted out of this. Mm-hmm. And he told me there's one thing. I do not want my daughter's death to be in vain. I'm gonna lose it. I'm sorry. And even Chairman Pai repeated that when the FCC voted on this to make this part of the act. And it's on video. I reached over and I punched him right in the arm. I punched Hank right in the arm when Pai said that. He said, Hank, your daughter's, most of all, I want you to understand your daughter's death was not in vain. And God, if that doesn't grab you by the heart.
For sure, Mark. So Mark, we're at the top of the hour. So let me share the results. And I would just want to ask each of you one quick question. I'll start with Martha. And that is, how has your life changed since Kari's law? But let me share the results first of the poll. Okay, so yeah, we're seeing anywhere from 1 to 3 seems to be the most popular. Most people are really not aware, most enterprises. So that probably rings true with what your gut is, but this poll was almost 30 users right here. It's a pretty decent poll. So Martha, how has your life changed? 30 seconds or less.
I would say my life has not changed dramatically. I am filled with gratitude that I was able to have just a little teeny part in bringing this issue to national attention. That's my 30 seconds.
Thank you. Fletch?
This has become my life every day when I get up in the morning. And nothing makes me feel better than to see people go, I get it.
Thank you, Mark. And Hank, I'm sure yours has changed markedly.
Well, it's kind of like Mark. The past 6 years, it's been every single day. Where do I have to be somewhere today? Who do I need to email? What do I need to do? That's that's slowed down quite a bit. But as far as changes, obviously, I lost a big part of my heart, and I'm never going to get that back. There's a tremendous void in our lives, all of us, because of the loss of Kari, and it's not something that I wish on anybody. It's a horrible thing to go through, and I every day, there's not a day goes by she's not on my mind, and that's the worst part, is missing her so much that pain seems to always be there. And there's times where there's laughter, there's things we're back to somewhat normal, but deep inside, I mean, it's always there. And,
wow. Yeah.
Not much that can change.
Spoken like a true father. Thank you, Hank. So we're going to continue next week with all of us here. Hopefully, Hank, you can join us again too. It's going to be a bit more technical next week. Mark's going to really deep dive, along with Martha, on the law and, again, how we can take it to next steps. So thanks again for leading this discussion today, Hank, Mark, Martha, of course, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thanks again for everybody for showing up today, taking the time out of your busy schedule. Steve, SCTC, you guys are great. When I told Hank about you guys, I said, you guys are all about ethics and doing the right thing. That's all I had to say. And he would have come here if he had a crawl. So thank you. Enjoy your afternoon, and we'll see you all next week.
All right.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Martha, thank you.
That was
Bye-bye.
really good. That was amazing. Take care, guys. Have a good day.
Bye. You too.
You outdid yourself on this.